Hello YouTube. In this video I'm going to be talking about some things that I've been into lately, and I will also be giving my recap of my January and February reading. Okay, first couple of things that I've been into actually are this lotion and this fragrance. Let me give you the deets. This is the patchouli and black pepper lotion from the brand Bathhouse, and then the fragrance is Kerala Forest by Soma Ayurvedic. I treated myself to both of these things for my birthday back in December, and it's just been kind of fun, like when you put on a whole outfit, you do your hair and makeup, and like you've got your jewelry on, to just also put on your fun smelly products. I don't want to like smell up a whole room, but when someone comes in for a hug and they can get a little whiff, I think that's nice. The next thing that I've been a fan of is playing cards. This is a Lord of the Rings pack of cards that my friend gave me. Like when I was in Dallas, my mom and I went to go get coffee, so I was like, I'm just gonna bring a pack of cards, and we played Rummy. Rummy has been my game of choice. But also if I have someone over for dinner, after we do the initial catch up, I'll be like, you want to play some cards? And it's just kind of nice to like not have all the pressure be on like the conversation to make the time go by. It's kind of nice to just spend time with someone while you are quietly contemplating your next move. So yeah, that's been fun. Looking through cookbooks more for recipe inspiration. I feel like I rely a lot on TikTok and Pinterest sometimes for recipes. I mean, I'm not pretending like I invented looking at cookbooks. Like that's one of the original ways people found inspiration for cooking, but I think we've moved away from it a little bit. Someone really thought about putting all of these recipes together, so it's fun to let that set the mood for your cooking. For music, first song that I've been really into is this one song off of Ethel Cain's new album. I'm gonna be honest, her new album is a little bit spooky for me. Like, if there's one feeling I don't really want to feel while listening to music, it's probably like disturbed. Like, I don't want to feel disturbed. But there's this one song on the album called Vacillator. I really feel like it embodies post-holiday winter. It's just very like gray, cold, kind of like January is such a long month. I don't know where the fuck I'm going with this, but yeah, that song slaps. And then I've also been into Bad Bunny's new album. I never listened to Bad Bunny before. Like, I knew of him, I just never really listened to his music. And then I heard a few of his new songs off of his new album, and I was like, I'm kind of into that. Yeah, it's just been a fun album. It's really fun to put on when you're cooking. Like, it just like livens up the mood. Okay, for movies, I'm gonna be honest, a lot of the movies I watched in January and February were like comfort rewatches, like Prince of Egypt, Spirit Stallion of the Cimarron. Like, I don't really need to talk about those movies in this, okay? I'll just talk about two new to me movies that I watched. The first one is All We Imagine Is Light. It follows these two women living in Mumbai. They're both workers in a hospital, and one of them is like slightly older with a little bit more seniority. They're different ages and their values and backgrounds and how they're trying to relate to each other through that. And it was just a beautiful, stunning movie. The next movie is called Boyfriends and Girlfriends, or the French name is L'ami de mon ami, which means the boyfriend of my girlfriend, and that's more of a fitting title for the movie, I think. But this was recommended to me by a friend. I just thought it was a charming ass movie. Like, it follows these two women, Blanche and Leah. One of them is Blanche, she's working at her girl boss job as the director of cultural affairs for the city that they live in. And Leah is a little bit younger, I think, but I think they just like meet around town. They start going to swimming together. Like Blanche is teaching Leia how to swim. They kind of like fall for each other's boyfriends in the process. So follows like these different exchanges between these four people with Blanche and Leia at the center of it. It kind of reminded me of Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney a little bit, just having like this friendship at the center of like romantic affairs. I think with that, we will get into my reading recap. The first book that I finished this year was Intermezzo by Sally Rooney. I don't know if I need to tell you about this book because it is so popular right now. But it basically follows these two brothers who have just lost their father, and they were already a little bit estranged in their relationship with each other. So now they're just like navigating all of that, plus the grief of their father's death. Oh, and one of them is a chess prodigy. That's kind of important. And I talked about this more in depth in a previous video, so I'm not really going to get into it. But I really enjoyed the like portrait of these two brothers' relationship and how they're working through their issues. But some of the other character development was like a little bit flat for me. The second book I read this year was called Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield. This was a really interesting, like, speculative fiction book. A little bit of like horror in there too, because it's about this couple, and one of them is a deep sea marine biologist. So she goes on a submarine mission. It ends up going wrong, and she's trapped under the sea for 3 weeks in a submarine. And when she comes back, she's a little different. The use of the horror elements to just kind of show how surreal it does feel when you're in a relationship that starts breaking down. The next book I read was called A Bollywood Affair by Sonali Dev. I didn't like it very much. I don't really even want to tell you what it's about because it's not worth your time, so let's just move on. The next book I read was called Eaters of the Dead by Michael Crichton. I was glued to this book. It went by really fast. It was really fun. I enjoyed it. The next book I read was called Enter Ghost by Isabella Hammad. This book follows the main character Sonia, who is currently living in London, where she's working as a theater actor, and she is taking a break from work and going back to Palestine to visit her sister. While she's there, her sister's friend, who is putting on a production of Hamlet, recruits Sonia to act. It uses this play to bring together characters who are from all over Palestine, various privileges regarding class or like even what kind of passport they have, where they're born, where they live. One thing that really stood out to me about this book was how often the characters go through borders and checkpoints, and these borders are imposed on them by Israel. The physical borders end up creating borders within groups of people within Palestine, within families. Like, it explores how there's a lot of divisions between Sonia and her sister based on like how much they participate in the liberation of Palestine. There's also like conflict between their father and one of their uncles, so the family is just like really divided. The divisions go all the way down to Sonia ends up having a miscarriage at one point in her life because she had a like deviated uterus or something. I forget what it was called, but there was a literal division in her uterus that caused her to miscarry. And then the last book that I read was called Body Friend by Katherine. It's about this woman who has some sort of chronic illness and gets a major like joint replacement surgery done in her leg. And as part of recovery, she starts doing hydrotherapy at the pool, and she meets this other woman who kind of seems to be in a similar body, might have a similar illness and knows similar pain. Then a little bit of time passes by, and our main character actually meets another woman in the park who also kind of like is similar to her in those ways. One of the women that she befriends, Frida, is really into like working out and like being proactive about slowing the progression of her illness. And she really thinks that she can control her illness and her pain in this way. Whereas the other woman, Sylvia, is more like willing to give into when her body needs to rest. I thought that the narrator and the characters seemed really detached. So yeah, interesting concept. It's kind of one of those books where I'm like, I think it might have been more effective as a short story. That was everything I wanted to talk about. Let me know if you enjoyed this video and if you read anything good in January and February. Okay, goodbye.